Welcome to this explainer. There is a massive, and I mean absolutely massive, economic mystery happening right beneath the surface of the Australian outback. It's a story of unparalleled natural wealth, a booming global technology sector, and a profound disconnect that is directly affecting the wallets of everyday citizens. As we'll see, possessing the most valuable resources on the planet doesn't automatically guarantee national prosperity, and the reasons why are absolutely fascinating.
Okay, let's dive right into this by thinking about the last time you bought some tech. Maybe it was a new stick of RAM, a high-capacity solid-state drive, or even just upgrading your smartphone. You likely noticed the price tag had essentially doubled or spiked dramatically over the last couple of years. Everyone feels that financial pinch at the checkout. We constantly hear about global chip shortages, supply chain bottlenecks, and massive demand driving up the cost of everything electronic. But the very beginning of that massive price hike, it actually starts thousands of miles away from Silicon Valley.
Now, here is the wild part. The absolute irony of those skyrocketing hardware costs is that the very materials driving up those prices likely started their life in Australian red dirt. Every time a new phone's price tag causes you to wince, consider that the absolute physical foundation of modern technology is being pulled directly out of the ground in the outback. It's an incredible starting point for global innovation. The profit cycle, however, just doesn't seem to loop back around to the people living right on top of it.
And this creates a really stark, highly visible contrast. On one hand, Australia possesses some of the richest dirt on planet Earth. The ground is packed tight with highly sought-after lithium, rare earths, and iron ore. But on the other hand, everyday citizens are out here struggling with severe housing crises, skyrocketing grocery bills, and a relentlessly climbing cost of living. The nation is sitting on a gold mine, both literally and figuratively, yet the average person feels like they are financially treading water, entirely disconnected from the billions of dollars being unearthed.
So, the crucial question we really need to unpack in this explainer is, why? Why does possessing these highly demanded global resources not make the average citizen significantly richer? If Australia owns the raw ingredients that the entire modern world is absolutely desperate for to build the future, why are everyday people feeling the financial squeeze? Why isn't the population universally wealthy from this insatiable global demand?
Let's move to part 1, the red dirt paradox.
Right now, Australian mines are shipping out absolute boatloads of raw materials. We're talking millions of tons of iron ore, lithium, and rare earths leaving the ports constantly. And we aren't just talking about generic rocks here. These are the highly specific, absolutely essential building blocks that power modern smartphones, sophisticated laptops, the massive data centers running cloud computing, and all those electric cars currently taking over the roads. This dirt is the raw, unrefined fuel for the entire 21st century digital economy. The global leverage here is honestly staggering to even think about. Over half the world's supply of some of these critical minerals comes straight out of this single country. More than 50%. Australia isn't just a player in the global tech components market. In many critical ways, it basically is the market. When the world's biggest tech conglomerates need the core materials for advanced batteries and cutting-edge electronics, they have to come knocking on this specific door.
Yet somehow, the macroeconomic equation just doesn't add up to widespread national wealth. Why is that? Well, because the country is essentially exporting its future prosperity in its rawest, cheapest possible form, and then turning right around and importing inflation through finished goods. We're selling off the basic ingredients for cheap, while domestic wages barely budge against the premium, marked-up prices of the finished electronic products we are eventually forced to buy back.
Which brings us to part 2, the global tech supply chain, and where exactly all that money goes.
To understand this, we need to map out the entire process, which honestly works in 4 frustratingly simple steps. Step 1, dig it up. Step 2, immediately ship it off across the ocean. Step 3, refine it entirely offshore, usually in massive industrial hubs over in China. And Step 4, buy back that exact same dirt, now magically shaped into finished tech, at massive retail markups. It's an objectively absurd cycle. By shipping thousands of tons of material halfway across the planet just to buy it back in a shiny box, the domestic economy completely skips the refinement stages, missing out on all the high-value processing jobs.
Politicians absolutely love to talk up Australia's status as a global mining powerhouse, but the economic reality on the ground, it's starkly different from the shiny press releases. Take the red dirt in the Pilbara region, for example. That specific area alone has generated billions upon billions of dollars in revenue for multinational mining companies. Yet regional towns sitting right next to those very mines often struggle to maintain basic local services, infrastructure, and housing. The immense wealth generated locally practically flies straight out the door.
Let's distill this into part 3, the cow and the milk.
I absolutely love this analogy from the source material because it hits the nail right on the head. It's like owning the cow, but buying back the milk at full price. It perfectly captures how economically absurd this whole setup is. You own the cow, but because you refuse to process the dairy yourself, you're constantly forced to pay premium retail prices during global dairy shortages just to buy back your own milk. The nation sits at the absolute foundation of the supply chain, holding the most valuable asset, yet somehow still ends up as the price taker at the consumer end.
This phenomenon actually has a specific name in economics. It's called the resource curse. It describes a very real, very frustrating situation where a lack of value-adding industries leaves a resource-rich nation economically vulnerable and stunted. Basically, a country stays surprisingly poor in terms of advanced industrial development simply because it never takes the time, effort, or financial investment to build the factories and specialized plants to actually process what it's digging out of the ground.
Let's look at a completely different approach in Part 4, the Norway comparison.
When you compare these two national models side by side, the difference in strategy is literally night and day. Decades ago, Norway took its massive natural oil resources and built a sovereign wealth fund. Today, that fund is the absolute envy of the financial world, actively ring-fencing hundreds of billions in wealth for future generations. Meanwhile, Australian short-term mining royalties, well, they largely just get swallowed up in general government spending to balance annual budgets. The potential for similar global leverage exists with critical minerals, but that long-term generational wealth just hasn't been locked in.
And a really crucial point here is ownership, because there's so much heavy foreign ownership of the biggest mining operations. Massive profit margins flow directly outward to shareholders sitting in foreign capitals. Huge chunks of this incredible financial windfall completely bypass the very people whose land is being excavated. Sure, there are definitely local jobs and tax revenues generated, but the true transformative wealth created by that red dirt, it never meaningfully touches the local economy. So we know the system is broken. Let's look at Part 5, turning dirt into dollars. Instead of just trying to dig massive holes even faster, the source material suggests the underlying economic strategy has to violently pivot. The proposed solution? Heavily invest in onshore processing plants and actively establish a local tech manufacturing sector. Now, obviously, this is a massively complex pivot, but doing it would create thousands of highly specialized, high-paying engineering and manufacturing jobs. More importantly, it would capture a much larger slice of the supply chain domestically, permanently keeping that economic value circulating right at home. And you know, the missing piece of this puzzle certainly isn't a lack of capability. Australia has literally everything required to make this work. We have the physical raw resources, an exceptionally stable democracy to attract long-term capital, and a highly educated, capable workforce. The fundamental building blocks are already sitting right there. The only thing genuinely missing is the bold policy and the massive upfront financial investment required to step up and transform the national strategy into that of a true, fully integrated resource superpower. The source material really hits the nail on the head regarding this necessary paradigm shift with this thought. The conversation about mining in Australia always focuses on digging more, never on keeping more. For decades, the entire national conversation has been strictly about volume, right? Debating exactly how fast the dirt can be dug up and shipped away. But if a nation actually wants to stop exporting its future prosperity to other industrial hubs, the conversation fundamentally has to shift toward figuring out exactly how much value can be kept locally before that ship ever leaves the port. So, I want to leave you with this final thought. The next time you look at the premium price tag of a brand new laptop or a piece of advanced tech, and you feel that painful sting of the modern cost of living, ask yourself this: is it finally time nations stop just digging up the sheer wealth of their own red dirt and actually start keeping it? Thanks for joining us for this explainer, and we will see you next time.